The only problem is that like Jaguar had a car called the S-Type at the time. So it's like, well, that's going to be a very popular thing and hard to actually, Google.
All right, welcome everyone to the Bioinformatics Lab podcast. I'm Kevin Libuit with Andrew Page, and today we're going to talk about the art of naming a pipeline. Andrew, you got a whole slew of tools out there with various naming conventions, some of which come from your kids' names, and some I have no idea what come from. So how do you approach this process of naming your bioinformatics software?
It's really, really difficult, but it's really important. Because you want to say a name and you want people to actually be able to write it down and understand it. And I guess in bioinformatics, we really love our acronyms and, come up with crazy, crazy things. But actually, what you want a nice, concise name that you can get across to people and tell people at conferences or whatever. And you want it to be unique. So when someone Googles it, they find it. They don't have to wade through a million different things or tools which are very, very similar. I remember one time someone proposed to call their tool Gobsmacked. I was like, okay. And they come up with a backronym, so they
Oh, yeah.
come up with some words to describe it. But then our IT department, our web team, were like, absolutely no way is our institution going to have a tool called that, and you have to call it something else. So they
Yeah.
called it Reaper in the end.
Backronyms are hilarious. That is obvious. That is a go-to naming scheme for many of bioinformatics tools. The things that even come top of mind that we use actively. I know Usher from UCSC. That's a backronym I can't think off the top of my head. It's like ultra fast hierarchical clustering or something or another. Gambit, I believe, is a backronym as well. I can't. I think it is. I can't even remember it. Yeah, and then the moniker itself tends to hold. At Theogen, we go with the Thea functionality. Like Thea Proc is the Theogen workflow for prokaryotic characterization. Thea Euc being the Theogen workflow for eukaryotic characterization. We actually have Thea Cove, which originally was something that we wrote for SARS-CoV-2, but then since has expanded just because of how similar the sequence data is coming for other viral pathogens. When I was at the laboratory out in Richmond, Virginia, I wanted to have a naming scheme relevant to the area. So we chose to name it after just major avenues in Richmond, Virginia, which also have like some kind of historical context. So, for example, there was a Tredegar avenue out in Richmond, Virginia. I think that was one of my first softwares. So it was totally unrelated to the functionality, but it just gave us a handle. It was kind of fun to say and put on workflows along the way. But you also have other personal, life experience type of naming schemes
Yeah.
there.
So one tool is Gubbins, and internally we were always talking about, we didn't a name for it, so it was like Gubbins. We just talked about it for a while, and that is like a little drawer you might have in your household, probably near the front door, where you just throw random stuff like keys and small little things, in a heap.
Oh, is that like UK slang? I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a Gubbins drawer.
Okay, all right. There you go.
Your random kind of little bits.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what was called internally, and then for the paper, they decided to make a backronym from Gubbins, so kind of reinventing history.
And what is the backronym from that?
I have no idea. It's in the title of the paper, but
That's hilarious.
yeah, that's a bit of a silly one because we already had a name, and then there's other names that I've used in the past, or things like I've used Irish language names. Like Galru and Skagare and
Nice.
Socceru. These are kind of very unique Irish language names, which obviously describe different things in Irish when translated. But they're you can Google them and you won't find very much because they're not commonly used words. And other things I've done is like named places. Like so, the flower of the town I live in is the crocus.
That's fun. Yeah. I like
So
the
I named
etymology.
one of my tools Crocus.
That's awesome. I think the Anderson Lab, they take a really similar approach and they keep a theme. All of theirs are like, like European, is it Nordic maybe? Gods like Freya and Ivar and whatever else they have on there. So they have not only this theme of the naming, but then if you go to their lab website, they have like this Norse mythology um, like aesthetic to it. So it gives that through line of things. And I don't know much about this mythology, so I don't know if Freya in the in the pantheon out there is anything to do with wastewater or anything like that. But that's a pretty cool scheme as well. And then you've also got something named after your kids, right?
I was just going to say Freya is actually a common girl's name here in the
Oh,
UK.
is it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, one of those things. Yeah, I named one of the tools after my child.
Only one of them.
I know them, yeah. And he was like, yeah, why not? It's quite Googleable. And I was Rory. And then I've named other stuff after places, kind of in locality, like Tiptoffs and
Hmm.
did plasmids. Yeah, finding names is very difficult, to be honest. And but you got to get it right from the start, because when you start building, say, a Python package, you're going to name the directory something, usually whatever you call the tool, and then you have to start naming, within that, you import from blah,
Yeah.
and so you have to keep things consistent. So you actually have to think about it up front, and ideally it'll be one word. You don't want a two-word tool name. So ideally it has to be one word, reasonably short. So it's kind of hard, and people should put a bit of effort into actually thinking about doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a default. When I was first writing pipelines, I would make it almost like super literal, like bacterial typing, dot
Yeah,
sh or whatever my first like couple of pipelines were. But having a tag on it, having a handle, makes it easy to talk about, makes it Googleable, makes it something that people can quickly find. Just as an example in this space, Torsten's pretty good at naming tools. He's got like Praca and all the rest. A Snippy, that's always a great one that people can talk about, and it's obvious in terms of what it does. Though he's
yeah,
got one tool that he doesn't name at all. It's just literal. It's MLST. He's got a little database, and then people can query it quickly, and you can get the sequence type. But the repo is just called MLST. So that's
yeah.
always causes a little bit of confusion. So even in our workflows at Theogen, you'll see that we tag the output as TS-MLST, so people can know that we're using the software under the hood as Torsten's MLST database querying, Perl scripts underneath of that.
I remember one master student wanted to call his tool S-type. Um, the only problem is that, like, Jaguar had a car called the S-type at the time. So it's like, well, that's going to be a very popular thing and hard to actually, Google.
Yeah.
So we decided on Seroba in the end.
It's funny that you say that actually, because something in the bioinformatics world that I always have to be specific when I'm Googling is Galaxy. Because the Galaxy, I always have to put Galaxy platform. Otherwise, one, you get like the universe,
Yeah,
or Galaxy rather, or you get, the phone. And it just easily search conflicts with the phone around there. So I always have to go Galaxy platform.
absolutely. At least with Terra, it's kind of quite unique. And well, I guess Terraforma. Yeah, there's a lot of bad names out there, but we get by.
Yeah, yeah, and there's the conversation of copywriting and things like that. We haven't run into too much, haven't seen around the space because it's generally an open academics, community where it's not necessarily infringing upon those things. But something to keep in mind for sure if you're calling it, I don't know, like Jaguar, as an example, that you might run into something there, Mickey Mouse, or you'll get Disney on you for your bioinformatics software.
So yeah, you heard it here. Before you do any development on anything, go and choose a really good name and make sure that it doesn't conflict with any trademarks and doesn't conflict with any existing tools. You can Google it easily. It's not offensive in any language. And yeah, so it's quite difficult to find that kind of thing.
And if you want to get cheeky, there's software all over the place to backronym something. Just I had to look this up. Gambit genomic approximation method for bacterial identification and tracking.
Well done.
All right. With that,
Yeah,
we'll see everyone in the next
that's
one.
made up.
All right. Cheers.